Hello everyone, myself Shirin Panjwani. Today I'm going to explain you the regulatory system in US. Pretty much all of us visit a pharmacy to pick a drug, but we likely don't consider where those drug comes from, how they market it. If a person wants to market their drug in US, what kind of drug you intend to market, what are the documents you required, how the whole system work, I will explain you all in detail. It's lengthy, so I made this presentation in parts. Without wasting your time, let's start with the content. The contents are terminologies, which is important because some of the short forms I will be using in this presentation. Then comes to the introduction about the US FDA. Then the structure of FDA, there are most likely 9 structures. Then comes to the type of drugs marketed in US. The first type is IND. What are the required documents comes to my next presentation. So basically this is the overview of the regulation in US. Is terminologies. So you can pause and go through the terminologies. I'm heading ahead towards the introduction part. Today's the US Food and Administration is a part of executive branch of government, falls under the Department of Health and Human Services. Now discussing about the responsibilities of FDA. The basic responsibility is that to protect the public health by assuring the safety, efficacy and security of human and veterinary by using biological products, medicinal products, cosmetic products and food supply. They are also responsible for advancing the public health by helping the speed innovation that makes medicine and food more effective, safe and affordable. They share with the public accurate science-based information they need to use medicine and food to maintain and improve their health. Go back to the FDA history, that is in Vaccine Act on 1830. This act was the first federal law dealing with the consumer protection and therapeutical substance. Then comes to the chief chemist of the US Department of Agriculture, that is Dr. Harvey. Expanding the division research in the area, Dr. Harvey ununified a varieties of groups behind a federal law to prohibit the adulteration and misbranding of food and drugs which are spreading unchecked. The structure of FDA. FDA is the agency within the Department of Health and Human Services consists of these 9 centers or the offices. The full form of each centers I have already shown you in my second slide. Starting with the first one OC, that is the Office of the Commissioner. They provide the centralized agency-wide direction and management to support effective administration of all the programs. It is responsible for effective and efficient implementation of the FDA mission. The second one is CBER, is the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research. CBER regulates biological products for disease prevention and treatment, including vaccine, protein-based products such as monoclonal antibodies, and blood products. The third one is Center for Device and Radiological Health, that is CDRH, is the task with ensuring that new medical devices are safe and effective before they are marketed. CDRH regulates medical device and radiation emitting products such as microwaves, TV sets, cell phones, razors to ensure they meet radiation safety standards. The fourth is the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. CDER evaluates all new prescription and over-the-counter drugs before they are sold to ensure they are safe and effective. The center routinely monitors television, radio, and print drugs ads to ensure that they are truthful and balanced. They also play a crucial role in providing the healthcare professional and consumer with information on how to use drugs appropriately and safely. The fifth one is the Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition. They're responsible for safety of almost all food consumed in US with the exemption of meats and some egg products which are regulated by US Department of Agriculture. The sixth is the Center for Tobacco Products, that is CTP, is responsible for overseeing the implementation of the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act, which became law on 22 June 2009. FDA responsibility under the law includes establishing performance standards, performing pre-market review for new or modified risk tobacco products, or the reviewing labeling and establishing and enforcing advertising with promotion restriction. Then the seventh one is the Center for Veterinary Medicine. CVM helps to ensure that animal food products are safe. They regulates the manufacture and distribution of food additives and drugs that will be given to animals. CVM also evaluates the safety and efficiency of the drug used to treat pet animals. The eighth one is the National Center for Toxicology Research. In partnership with other FDA, government agency, industries and academic, NCTR conduct research and provide advice with training necessary for science-based decision making and developing sound regulatory policy. I will give you one example that in the area of counter-terrorism and food defense, NCTR scientists collaborate with the scientists of other FDA centers and several federal state agencies to evaluate the disease-causing potential of food-borne pathogens and to develop methods for rapid detection of the bacterial pathogens. Then the last one is QRA of Regulatory Affairs. They advise and assist the FDA Commissioner and other key officials on regulations and compliance matters. It is lead office for all FDA field activities and executive direct line authority over all agency field operation. They provide direction and counsel to FDA field office in implementing FDA policy and operational guidelines. If you guys want more information, go to the link below in my description box. Next is the type of drug application in US. There are five types. The first type is the investigational new drug, that is IND. Currently, the federal law requires that the drug to be subject of an approved marketing application before it transport or distribute across the state lines. Because a sponsor will probably want to ship the investigational drug to clinical investigator in many states, it must seek an exhibition from the legal requirement. Then the second is new drug application. When the sponsor of new drug believes that enough evidence of the drug's safety and effectiveness has been obtained to maintain the FDA requirements for the marketing approval, the sponsor submit to FDA a new drug application. Then the third is the abbreviated new drug application. They contains the data that when submitted to FDA Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, the Office of Generic Drugs provide for the review and ultimate approval of the generic drug products. Generic drug application is also known as abbreviated because they are generally not required to include preclinical and clinical data to establish safety and effectiveness. Third one is the over-the-counter drug. Over-the-counter drug plays an increasing vital role in America's healthcare system. The question is, what is OTC? OTC are those drugs that are available to the consumer without the prescription. The drugs that is 80 therapeutical categories of OTC drug ranging from ASIN drug product to the weight control drug products. The last one is the biological license application. These products are approved for the marketing under the provision of the Public Health Services Act. And a biological license application is a submission that contains a specific information on the manufacture processes, chemistry, pharmacological, and clinical pharmacological with the medical effects of the biological products. Question is, what is investigational new drug? An investigational new drug application is a submission to the US FDA requesting permission to initiate a clinical trial of new drug product in US. An IND allows you to legally ship an unapproved drug or import a new drug from the foreign countries. That means, in reality, the IND is much more legal tool allowing a company to ship a drug. The IND application allows a company to initiate and conduct clinical studies of their new drug product. The IND application provides the FDA with the data necessary to decide whether your new drug clinical trial pose a reasonable risk to the human subject participating in the study. You guys must be thinking that when do I need an IND and when I don't? First, we'll talk about when do we need IND. Simply, an IND is required anytime if you want to conduct a clinical trial of an unapproved drug in US. IND would be required to conduct a clinical trial if your drug is a new chemical entity or not approved for indication under investigational in a new dosage form or being administered at a new dosage level or in the combination with the another drug and the combination is not approved. All clinical studies where a new drug is administered to human subject regardless of whether the drug will be commercially developed require an IND. The second one is when I don't need an IND. IND is not required to conduct a study if your drug is not intended for human subject but it is intended for in vitro testing or laboratory research animal. That is very obvious. The study will not be used to promote unapproved indication. Whenever a sponsor or the investigator consider conducting a clinical study, careful consideration should be given to the need for an IND. Companies should consult with their regulatory affairs staff to determine if an IND is required and the investigator can consult with the institutional review board at their institution. If any consultant it is still unclear where an IND is required, potential, potential sponsors should contact the FDA for advice. Conducting a study without an IND when one is required can lead to a regulatory action by the FDA. Types of investigational new drug. There are three types. The first one is an investigator IND. This IND is submitted by a physician who both initiate and conduct an investigation and under whose immediate direction the investigational drug is administered or dispensed. A physician might submit a research IND to propose a study, an unapproved drug or an approved product for new indication or in a new patient population. Then the second one is the emergency use IND. It allows the FDA to authorize use of an experimental drug in an emergency situation that does not allow time for submission of an IND. It is also used for patients who does not meet the criteria of an existing study protocol or if an approved study protocol does not exist. For example, if someone has already researched COVID-19 drug, then due to this emergency used IND, FDA allows to authorize use of experimental drug. Then the last one is the treatment of IND is submitted for the experimental drug showing promise in clinical testing for serious or immediate life-threatening condition. There are two IND categories. One is the commercial and the second is for the research. Next is the investigational new drug application. The form 1571 is required part of initial IND and every subsequent submission related to IND application. The 1571 serves a cover sheet for IND submission and provides the FDA with basic information about this submission. The name of the sponsor, IND number, name of the drug, type of the submission with serial number and the content of the application. Each submission of IND must be consequently numbered, starting with the initial IND application, which is numbered 0000. There is 40. The next submission might be responsible to the clinical hold, correspondence or the amendment, etc. should be number 0001, that is 30 and then 1, with subsequent submission number constantly in the order they are submitted. It is important to note that FDA expects every submission, even more routine correspondence, to submit it with the completed form 1571 and have a serial number. The FDA tracks all the IND submission based on the serial number and will file them according to the serial number when received. Sometime it might happen when the FDA serial number for the submission does not match with the sponsor's serial number, which can lead to the confusion when revising the previous submission to the IND file. Signing the 1571, the sponsor is also making three important commitments to the FDA. The sponsor is committing not to initiate the clinical trial until 30 days after the FDA received the IND, unless otherwise notified by the FDA, and not to begin a continued clinical study covered by IND if they are placed on clinical hold. The second one is the sponsor is committing to ensure that an IRB will be responsible for initiate and continue review and approve of each study in the proposed clinical investigation. Then the third one is the sponsor is committing to conduct the investigator in accordance with all the applicable regulatory requirements. These are the significant commitments and the sponsor should be aware that signing 1571 is more than a formality and that making a willful false statement on 1571 is a criminal offense. Detailed information on completing 1571 form can be found on the FDA website. This is how the 1571 form looks like. The last one is the overview of IND application. This application must contain the information in three broad areas. The first one is the animal pharmacology and toxicology studies. Preclinical data to pertain an assessment as to whether the product is reasonably safe for initial testing in humans. The second one is the manufacturing information. Information pertaining to the composition, manufacturer, stability, and control used for manufacturing the drug substance and the drug product. This information is accessed to ensure that the company can adequately produce and supply batches of the drug. Then the third one is the clinical protocols and investigator information. Detailed protocol for proposed clinical studies to assess whether the initial phase trial will expose subject to unnecessary risk. Also information on the qualification of clinical investigator professional. Finally, the commitments to obtain informed consent from the research subject and to obtain the review of the study by Investigational Review Board and to the Investigational New Drug Regulation. Once the IND is submitted, the sponsor must wait for 30 days calendar days before initiating any clinical trials. During this time, FDA has opportunity to review the IND for safety to assure that research subject will not be subjected to unreasonable risk. Each area I will explain you guys in detail on my next presentation. This I'm completing my part 1. I'm sure you guys enjoy this video. Yes, then make sure to give big thumbs up and share it with everyone around you. And if you haven't done so far, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.